Sometimes a single cruel sentence can change the course of a life. Nathan Cole was once a quiet husband who loved his wife deeply, yet she mocked him and called him weak. After betrayal and divorce, he chose silence and rebuilt himself. 3 years later, when they meet again in New York, Vanessa finally realizes the man she once looked down on has become someone she can never reach again. A story about betrayal, growth, and the painful price of losing a good man too late.
This is a fictional American romance story created using AI for entertainment purposes only, intended strictly for audiences 18 years and older and not suitable for children under 18.
San Diego evenings had a way of pretending everything was perfect. The ocean breeze rolled through the quiet streets of La Jolla, carrying the faint smell of salt and eucalyptus. From the outside, the Cole house looked like a page from a luxury lifestyle magazine, glass windows glowing warm against the fading pink sky, a sleek white Tesla charging in the driveway, and a row of carefully trimmed succulents along the stone path. Inside, Nathan Cole stood alone in the kitchen, rinsing a wine glass that wasn't his. The house was quiet, except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Vanessa's voice upstairs talking on the phone. Her laughter floated down the staircase, bright, effortless, the kind of laugh she rarely gave him anymore. Nathan dried the glass slowly. 38 years old, senior software architect. Reliable, calm, the type of man colleagues trusted with impossible deadlines. But in his own marriage, he often felt like background furniture. Vanessa's footsteps eventually clicked down the stairs. She entered the kitchen wearing a silk robe and holding her phone, her blonde hair loosely tied. Even after 8 years of marriage, she still looked like someone who belonged on a billboard. "You're still up?" she asked casually. Nathan nodded. Couldn't sleep. She opened the fridge, scanning its contents like she was looking for something specific, but not quite sure what. "Did you drink my wine?" she asked. Nathan lifted the glass slightly. "Just one." Vanessa sighed softly. "You always do that." Nathan frowned. "Do what?" "Take things without asking." He blinked. "It's a bottle we bought together." "That's not the point." Nathan leaned against the counter, suddenly tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "When is it the point, Vanessa?" he asked quietly. She shut the fridge door a little harder than necessary. "Oh my God, Nathan, not tonight." "Not tonight what?" "This." She gestured vaguely between them. "This conversation where you act like everything is some deep emotional problem." Nathan stared at her. "Isn't it?" Vanessa gave a short laugh that had no warmth in it. "See? That's exactly what I mean." He felt the familiar tightening in his chest. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, as if deciding whether the next words were worth saying. Then she said them anyway. "You overthink everything." Nathan stayed silent. Vanessa leaned against the counter across from him. "You're safe, Nathan," she continued. "Predictable, responsible. That doesn't sound like a bad thing." "It's not." Her pause said otherwise. "But?" he asked. She shrugged. "But sometimes it feels like I'm married to someone who's half asleep." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Half asleep?" "You know what I mean." "I don't." Vanessa exhaled sharply. "This is why talking to you is exhausting." Nathan set the wine glass down. "Try me." The tension in the room thickened. Vanessa crossed her arms. "Fine," she said. "You want honesty?" "Yes." "You're weak sometimes, Nathan." The word landed harder than he expected. "Weak," he repeated quietly. "In your energy, your presence." Nathan's voice stayed steady. "I work 60 hours a week. I know that. I pay half the mortgage. I show up for every family event. I fix everything in this house. I didn't say you're useless." "Then what are you saying?" Vanessa looked at him for a long moment. Then she said the sentence that would echo in Nathan's mind for years. "You're weak in the bedroom." Silence fell like shattered glass. Nathan didn't move. Outside, a car passed slowly on the quiet street. Vanessa continued, her voice calmer now, as if she'd finally released something that had been sitting inside her for months. "I just wish you had more fire." Nathan swallowed. "Fire." "You know," she gestured vaguely again. "Confidence, passion, something that makes a woman feel wanted." Nathan looked down at his hands. He remembered the nights he stayed awake while she slept, worrying about deadlines. The weekends he cancelled plans so she could attend marketing conferences in Los Angeles. The quiet things he did because he believed love lived in those small acts. But none of those things sounded like fire. "Is that what you think of me?" he asked. Vanessa hesitated. "I didn't say I don't love you. That's not what I asked." Her silence answered him. Upstairs, a notification chimed on her phone. Vanessa glanced at the screen. A smile flickered across her face before she caught herself. Nathan noticed. Something subtle shifted in the room. "Who is that?" he asked. "Work." "At 11:30 at night?" She slipped the phone face down on the counter. "You're being paranoid." Nathan studied her expression. For the first time in a long while, a strange thought crossed his mind. Not anger, not jealousy, just a quiet, unsettling curiosity. "Vanessa," he said slowly. "What? When did you start looking at me like that?" "Like what? Like I'm already gone." Her expression hardened. "You're imagining things." Nathan nodded slowly. Maybe he was. Or maybe something had already started breaking between them long before tonight. Vanessa grabbed a glass and poured herself wine. The kitchen light reflected off the dark red liquid. "You're making this dramatic," she said. Nathan looked at her for a long moment. Then he said softly, "Maybe I just realized something." "What?" "That the way you see me might not be the truth." Vanessa shrugged. "Then prove me wrong." Nathan didn't answer. Not because he couldn't, but because for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure proving anything to Vanessa Cole mattered anymore. Upstairs the phone buzzed again. Vanessa's eyes flickered toward it. Nathan noticed. And in that small, almost invisible moment, something inside him began to wake up. The first sign that something was wrong came quietly, not like the scenes in movies. No lipstick on a collar, no mysterious perfume lingering in the air. In real life, betrayal often arrived through the smallest fractures in routine. Nathan noticed them because he was a man who lived by patterns. Vanessa used to come home around 6:30. Traffic from downtown San Diego was predictable enough that he could almost set a clock by the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. But sometime after that argument in the kitchen, the schedule changed. 7 o'clock, then 7:30, then sometimes 8. Client dinners, she would say casually, slipping off her heels near the front door. Big campaign coming up. Nathan never argued. He would nod, finish the dishes, and listen to the soft echo of her footsteps upstairs. But something had shifted inside him. Not anger, not yet, just awareness. One Wednesday evening, Nathan stayed late at the office. The building where he worked, a glass-stack campus near Torrey Pines, had mostly emptied by 9. Rows of desks set under dimmed lights, glowing monitors left in sleep mode. Nathan sat alone in a conference room with his laptop open, reviewing lines of code. But his concentration kept drifting. His mind returned again and again to the way Vanessa had smiled at her phone that night in the kitchen. He shook the thought away and reached for his coffee. His phone buzzed. A notification. Not a message, an Instagram alert. Nathan rarely used social media. His account existed mostly because Vanessa insisted they should appear present online. Their wedding photos, beach vacations, smiling holiday dinners, it all lived there like a curated museum of happiness. The notification read, "Ryan Parker posted a new story." Nathan frowned. He didn't remember following Ryan Parker, but Vanessa did. The name sounded vaguely familiar. Curious, Nathan tapped the notification. The video loaded instantly. A brightly lit gym, loud music, mirrors everywhere. In the center stood a tall man with dark hair and a sculpted build, holding a phone out at arm's length. Ryan Parker. Nathan recognized him now. Vanessa had shown him this account months ago. "Fitness influencer," she'd said. "Huge following. My company might collaborate with him." Ryan grinned into the camera. "Late night session," he said. The camera panned across the gym. Weights, cardio machines, empty except for one person in the background. A woman tying her hair into a ponytail. For half a second, Nathan didn't recognize her. Then the woman turned slightly toward the mirror. Blonde hair, black athletic leggings, the exact white sneakers Vanessa had bought last month. Nathan froze. The video lasted only 8 seconds, but it was enough. The timestamp read 9:14 p.m. Nathan looked at the clock in the conference room. 9:18. His chest felt strangely hollow. He replayed the video once. Then again. Vanessa's face never appeared fully, but Nathan had spent 8 years memorizing the shape of her silhouette. He knew. He didn't call her. He didn't send a message. Instead, he closed the Instagram app and sat there quietly. Outside the window, the Pacific Ocean was invisible in the darkness, but Nathan could hear the distant rhythm of waves breaking along the shore. His hands rested on the table, very still. The first emotion wasn't rage, it was disbelief. No dramatic disbelief, just a slow, heavy realization moving through his body like cold water. Vanessa had said she was having dinner with clients tonight. Nathan opened his phone again. Her last text from earlier that evening appeared on the screen. Vanessa, don't wait up, long meeting tonight. Nathan stared at the message. Then he opened Instagram again. Ryan Parker's account had nearly 2 million followers. Videos of workouts, photos of protein shakes, shirtless beach runs. Nathan scrolled slowly. Most of the comments were from strangers. But there he saw something familiar. Vanessa's username. A comment from 3 days ago. Amazing energy. Nathan's stomach tightened. He kept scrolling. Another comment from last week. Proud of this project. Nathan leaned back in the chair. The room suddenly felt smaller. Pieces of memory began rearranging themselves. The new gym membership, the late nights, the way Vanessa had started caring more about her appearance before leaving the house, the laughter on the phone. Nathan exhaled slowly. He expected anger, but what came instead was something quieter, a strange clarity. At 10:37 p.m., Nathan heard the garage door open at home. He was already there, sitting on the couch with the lights off. Vanessa walked in, carrying her purse, and kicked off her shoes. "Hey," she said casually when she saw him. "You're home early." Nathan looked at her. Her hair was slightly damp, like she had just showered or worked out. "How was dinner?" he asked. Vanessa walked into the kitchen. "Long," she said. "Clients?" "Mm-hmm." Nathan nodded slowly. "Good meeting?" She opened the fridge and grabbed a bottle of sparkling water. "Exhausting," she replied. Nathan watched her movements. Every gesture felt slightly different now, like watching a familiar movie after someone had already spoiled the ending. Vanessa took a sip. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" she asked. Nathan shrugged, thinking. About what? He looked at her. About the gym. About Ryan Parker. About the quiet way a marriage could collapse while two people still shared the same house. But he said none of that. Instead, Nathan answered calmly. "Work." Vanessa nodded. "Good night then." She headed upstairs. Halfway up the staircase, her phone buzzed. Nathan saw the glow of the screen illuminate her face. And once again, that smile. The one she didn't give him anymore. Nathan looked away. Something inside him cracked in that moment. Not loudly, not violently. Just a quiet fracture in the foundation of the man he thought he was. But beneath that fracture, something else stirred. A thought he had never allowed himself before. Maybe she's right. Maybe he had been weak. Not because he lacked passion, but because he had built his entire identity around being the man who stayed, the man who endured, the man who forgave before anyone asked. Nathan stood slowly and turned off the last light in the living room. Upstairs, Vanessa's laughter drifted faintly through the bedroom door. Nathan walked into the guest room and closed the door behind him. In the darkness, he whispered something to himself. Not a promise, not yet, just the beginning of one. "All right," he said quietly. The ocean wind rattled the window slightly. Nathan sat down on the edge of the bed, and for the first time in years, he began to think about a life that did not include Vanessa Cole. Change rarely announces itself. It arrives quietly, disguising itself as routine. 3 weeks after Nathan saw the video in Ryan Parker's gym, nothing in the Cole house appeared different on the surface. The same morning sunlight spilled through the wide kitchen windows. The same coffee machine hissed at exactly 6:40 every morning. Vanessa still posted photos of avocado toast and beach walks on Instagram, and Nathan still liked them. At least, that's what the world saw. But inside Nathan, something had shifted permanently. He began waking earlier, 5 a.m. The city outside La Jolla was still dark at that hour, the streets silent except for the distant hum of delivery trucks heading toward downtown San Diego. Nathan sat at the kitchen table with his laptop open, a notebook beside him filled with diagrams and scattered equations. Artificial intelligence architecture, predictive modeling, autonomous data systems. Word that had once excited him years ago, but that he had slowly abandoned while chasing safer corporate promotions. Now, the ideas returned with unsettling clarity. It started as a distraction, a way to keep his mind from drifting upstairs, where Vanessa slept beside a phone that rarely stopped lighting up. But distraction soon turned into something sharper. Focus. One Friday afternoon, Nathan sent a message he hadn't sent in nearly a decade. "Nathan. Daniel Mercer. Are you still alive?" The response came 10 minutes later. Daniel. Depends. Who's asking? Nathan smiled faintly. Daniel Mercer had been his closest friend during their Stanford years. Brilliant, reckless, the type of programmer who skipped lectures but built entire operating systems in his dorm room. After graduation, Daniel disappeared into the startup world in San Francisco. Nathan chose stability. Marriage, a mortgage, two completely different lives. Nathan typed again. Do you still work with machine learning models? 3 dots appeared immediately. Always. A pause, then another message. Why? Nathan stared at the screen for a moment. For years, he had convinced himself he wasn't the kind of man who took risks. But maybe that had never been true. Maybe he had simply been comfortable. He typed slowly. I have an idea. They met 2 days later in a quiet cafe overlooking Mission Bay. Daniel arrived exactly as Nathan remembered him, messy dark hair, wrinkled hoodie, and the slightly chaotic energy of someone whose brain never stopped running calculations. Nathan Cole, Daniel said, grinning as he slid into the chair. I thought you vanished into suburban husband life. Nathan gave a small smile. Something like that. Daniel studied him carefully. You look different. Older? No, Daniel said. Sharper. Nathan didn't respond. A barista set 2 coffees on the table. Daniel leaned back. So, he said, you said you had an idea. Nathan opened his laptop. For the next 40 minutes, he explained. An AI system capable of predicting complex consumer behavior patterns, not just based on historical data, but emotional and behavioral microsignals pulled from online activity. Daniel stopped smiling halfway through the explanation. By the end, he was leaning forward with intense focus. Wait, Daniel said. You're talking about building a predictive behavior engine? Yes, that's insane. Nathan raised an eyebrow. In a good way? Daniel laughed softly. In $1 billion way. Nathan felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Excitement. Daniel tapped the table. Why haven't you built this already? Nathan hesitated. For years he would have answered honestly. Fear, responsibility, risk. But today he simply said, I was busy. Daniel studied him again. Something passed between them. A silent recognition that Nathan Cole was not the same quiet, cautious man he used to know. So, Daniel said finally, are we doing this? Nathan closed the laptop. Yes. At home, Vanessa barely noticed the shift. Her life had grown louder, brighter, more chaotic. Ryan Parker appeared frequently in her Instagram stories now. Not openly romantic, but close enough that anyone paying attention could see the pattern. Gym sessions, beach runs, private jokes in comment sections. Nathan watched none of it directly, but the internet had a way of making everything visible eventually. One evening, Vanessa walked into the house, glowing with energy. You should see this new gym Ryan introduced me to, she said excitedly while kicking off her heels. The trainers are insane. Nathan looked up from his laptop. Sounds impressive. It is. She grabbed the protein bar from the counter. You should come sometime. Nathan almost smiled. I'm busy lately. With what? She asked. Work. That was technically true. Every night, after Vanessa went to sleep, Nathan and Daniel stayed on video calls until 2 in the morning. Algorithms, funding models, prototype architecture. Nathan's mind felt alive in a way it hadn't in years. Vanessa bit into the protein bar. You've been distant, she said casually. Nathan looked at her. You've been busy. She shrugged. That's marketing. Nathan nodded. That's tech. The conversation ended there. Neither of them pushed further. But the silence between them had changed. It no longer felt like tension. It felt like distance. 3 months later, Daniel flew down from San Francisco with a grin that could barely stay contained. They met again at the same cafe by Mission Bay. Daniel dropped a folder onto the table. Seed funding, he said. Nathan blinked. What? 2 million. Nathan stared at him. Already? Daniel nodded. Your idea scared the hell out of them. Nathan frowned. That's good? In venture capital? Daniel laughed. That's the best possible reaction. Nathan looked out at the water for a moment. The bay shimmered under the afternoon sun. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a straight line. It felt wide open. Daniel leaned forward. So, he said quietly, when do we start building? Nathan turned back to him. There was no hesitation now. We already have. That night, Vanessa didn't come home until nearly midnight. Nathan was still awake, working. She walked in smelling faintly of gym soap and expensive perfume. "You're up again?" she asked. Nathan nodded without looking away from his screen. Deadline. Vanessa stood there for a moment, watching him. "Good night then," she said. "Good night." She went upstairs. Nathan continued typing. Somewhere across the city, Ryan Parker probably believed he had taken something valuable from Nathan Cole. But Ryan didn't understand something important.
Nathan had stopped fighting for the past, and once a man did that, he became very dangerous to underestimate. By the time summer arrived in San Diego, the distance between Nathan and Vanessa had grown so wide it almost felt polite. They no longer argued. They no longer asked each other many questions. They simply moved through the same house like two professionals sharing an office space. Nathan woke before sunrise. Vanessa often returned home after dark. Their schedules overlapped just enough to maintain the illusion of a marriage. And to Vanessa, that illusion still felt comfortable. Nathan's silence confirmed what she had believed for months. He wouldn't fight. He never did. Ryan Parker, on the other hand, was the opposite of silence. Ryan's life was noise. Music blasting in luxury gyms, bright camera lights, followers cheering in comment sections, late-night parties in downtown San Diego where everyone seemed young, beautiful, and endlessly energetic. The first time Vanessa spent a full evening with him outside the gym, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Excitement. Ryan picked her up in a black Mercedes convertible just after sunset. "You ready?" he asked with an easy grin. "For what?" "For a real night out." The ocean air rushed through Vanessa's hair as they drove down the Pacific Coast Highway. Ryan talked constantly about sponsorship deals, brand partnerships, upcoming fitness expos in Las Vegas and Miami. Vanessa laughed more that night than she had in months. Ryan had a way of making the world feel larger, louder, more alive. When he touched her hand across the table at the rooftop bar in downtown La Jolla, she didn't pull away. Instead, she looked out over the glowing coastline and told herself something she had already decided weeks ago. "I deserve to feel this." Nathan noticed the change, but he never asked about it. Instead, his world was becoming something else entirely. The startup Daniel had jokingly named Sentinel Dynamics had grown from a late-night idea into something dangerously real. Their predictive AI prototype worked. Not perfectly, but enough to impress the venture capital firms Daniel had connections with. Nathan spent most nights inside his home office now, headphones on, multiple monitors glowing in the dark. Data flowed across the screens, behavioral prediction models, pattern recognition frameworks, algorithms that grew more powerful every week. Sometimes, around midnight, he would hear Vanessa quietly enter the house. Sometimes she didn't come home at all. Nathan never went to check. One evening in August, Vanessa walked into the kitchen and found Nathan cooking. This alone felt unusual. He was slicing vegetables with calm precision, his sleeves rolled up. "You're home early," she said. Nathan glanced at the clock. It was 7:10. "Depends on your definition," he replied. Vanessa laughed softly. "I guess it does." She poured herself a glass of wine and leaned against the counter. For a moment, she simply watched him. There was something subtly different about the way he moved now, more deliberate, less hesitant. "What are you making?" she asked. "Pasta." "Fancy," Nathan shrugged. "It's just food." Vanessa studied his face. "You've been working a lot." "Yes." "With that same company?" Nathan shook his head slightly. "No." She frowned. "You quit?" "Not exactly." Nathan turned off the stove and faced her. "I started something new." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "What kind of something?" "A company." Her reaction was not what he expected. She laughed, not cruelly, just surprised. "You? A startup founder?" Nathan nodded calmly. "Yes." Vanessa took another sip of wine. "That sounds stressful." "It is." "Why would you do that?" Nathan considered the question for a moment. Then he answered honestly. "Because I wanted to." Vanessa tilted her head. "You've never been the risky type." Nathan simply said, "People change." She shrugged. "Maybe." But the truth was, she didn't think much about it afterward. Her attention was somewhere else entirely. Ryan's world began revealing its cracks slowly. Vanessa first noticed it during a brand event in Los Angeles. Ryan was supposed to appear as the face of a new athletic wear campaign. The venue was filled with influencers, photographers, and media executives. At first, everything felt glamorous.
flashing cameras, champagne glasses, Ryan whispering playful comments into her ear. But as the night stretched on, Vanessa began noticing small things. Ryan drank more than she expected. He disappeared frequently to talk to different women. At one point, she overheard him arguing quietly with a manager near the bar. "You promised the payment already," Ryan snapped. "We're working on it," the manager replied. Vanessa pretended not to listen, but something about the exchange lingered in her mind. Later that night, while they rode back to the hotel, Ryan seemed distracted. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he said quickly. "You seem stressed." "It's nothing." She waited. Ryan sighed. "These companies are cheap sometimes. They want exposure, but don't want to pay." Vanessa frowned. "I thought you were doing really well." Ryan forced a smile. "I am." But the confidence in his voice felt thinner than usual. Back in San Diego, Nathan's world was moving in the opposite direction. 3 venture capital firms had already scheduled meetings with Sentinel Dynamics. Daniel called Nathan late one night, practically shouting through the phone. "They love it," Daniel said. "Who does?" "Everyone." Nathan leaned back in his chair. "That's promising." Daniel laughed. "You are the calmest future millionaire I've ever met." Nathan stared at the glowing code on his screen. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he replied quietly, "It's not about the money." "What is it about then?" Nathan thought about the night Vanessa called him weak. About the quiet humiliation of realizing he had been invisible in his own marriage. Finally, he answered, "It's about becoming someone else." A week later, Vanessa sat across from Ryan at a beachside cafe. He was calling through his phone, barely listening while she spoke about a new marketing campaign at work. "Ryan," she said. "You're not paying attention." "Sorry." He smiled quickly and reached for her hand. "You know, you're the smartest person in this place, right?" Vanessa softened. Ryan had always been good at saying the right things, but something still felt slightly off. "Do you ever think about the future?" she asked suddenly. Ryan frowned. "What do you mean?" "Like 5 years from now." Ryan laughed. 5 years? "Yes, I don't even know where I'll be next month." Vanessa forced a smile. But somewhere deep inside, a small uncomfortable thought appeared. Meanwhile, across town, Nathan closed his laptop after a 14-hour workday. His reflection stared back at him in the dark screen. For the first time in years, he liked the man he saw there. Upstairs, Vanessa's phone buzzed. Ryan's name lit up the screen. She smiled and picked it up. Downstairs, Nathan poured himself a glass of water and looked out toward the dark ocean. Neither of them realized it yet, but the fantasy Vanessa had chosen was already beginning to crumble, and the man she had once called weak was slowly becoming someone she no longer understood. The end of a marriage rarely sounds like thunder. Sometimes it sounds like paperwork. Nathan Cole realized this on a quiet Tuesday morning in October, sitting in a law office overlooking downtown San Diego. The building was modern glass walls, pale wood furniture, the faint smell of coffee drifting from somewhere down the hallway. Across the desk sat Laura Whitaker, a divorce attorney recommended by one of Daniel's investors. She flipped through a thin folder. "So," she said gently, "you're certain about this?" Nathan looked out the window for a moment. The city moved normally below. Cars, pedestrians, the quiet rhythm of people living their ordinary lives. "Yes," he said. Laura nodded. "No children, joint property, 8-year marriage." Nathan folded his hands calmly. "That's right. You're requesting a straightforward separation agreement," she continued. "No financial disputes." Nathan nodded again. Laura studied him carefully. "I have to ask," she said, "most cases like this involve more conflict." Nathan almost smiled. "I am not interested in conflict." Laura closed the folder. "Then this will be simple." Nathan exhaled quietly. Simple. The word felt strange considering how long he had carried this decision. That evening, Vanessa came home just after 7. Nathan was sitting at the dining table with 2 plates already set. "Wow," she said as she walked in. "Dinner? Thought we should talk." Vanessa paused. There was something in his voice she didn't recognize. Not anger, not sadness, just calm. "Okay," she said slowly. They sat across from each other, the same way they had thousands of times before. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. Finally, Vanessa broke the silence. "You're being weird," she said lightly. Nathan nodded. "I probably am." She took a sip of wine. "So, what's going on?" Nathan reached into the folder beside him and slid a single document across the table.
Vanessa glanced down. At first, she didn't react. Then she read the title again. Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. She looked up slowly. You're divorcing me? Nathan met her eyes. Yes. The word hung in the air between them. Vanessa leaned back in her chair. For several seconds, she simply stared at him. Then she laughed. Not cruelly, more like disbelief. Wait, you're serious? Yes. Because of what? That stupid argument months ago? Nathan shook his head. No. Then what? He didn't mention Ryan Parker. He didn't mention the gym video. He didn't mention the months of quiet observation. Instead, he said the simplest truth. We are not the same people anymore. Vanessa stared at him, searching his face for some trace of anger or desperation. There was none. You're overreacting, she said finally. I don't think so. Nathan, she sighed. Every marriage goes through rough periods. I agree. Then why jump straight to divorce? Nathan folded his hands calmly on the table. Because this isn't a rough period. Vanessa frowned. Then what is it? It's the end. Silence returned. Vanessa studied him again, more carefully this time. Something about him felt unfamiliar. His posture, his eyes, even the way he spoke. You've been planning this, she said slowly, for a while. And you didn't think to talk to me? Nathan tilted his head slightly. I tried talking for years. Vanessa opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time that evening, irritation crept into her voice. So what, you're just walking away? Yes. Just like that? Nathan nodded. Just like that. Vanessa leaned back in her chair again, crossing her arms. Well, she said coolly, if that's what you want. Nathan watched her quietly. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. Instead, she shrugged. Honestly, she said, maybe it's for the best. Nathan didn't react. Vanessa continued, her tone almost casual now. We've been drifting apart anyway. That's true. And you deserve someone who appreciates whatever it is you do. Nathan almost smiled at the phrasing. And you deserve someone exciting, he replied. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. Exactly. They sat in silence again. Finally, she pushed the document back toward him. When does this happen? Soon, Nathan said. If you agree. Vanessa shrugged. Sure, no drama, no shouting, just signatures. Later that night, Vanessa stood on the balcony with her phone pressed to her ear. Ryan answered on the third ring. Hey, gorgeous, she smiled. You busy? Just finished the workout. I have news. Good or bad? Vanessa leaned against the railing, looking out at the dark ocean. Depends how you look at it. Try me. She hesitated for a moment, then she said it casually. Nathan asked for a divorce tonight. Ryan was silent for a second, then he laughed softly. Seriously? Yep. Well, damn. Vanessa expected sympathy. Instead, Ryan said, So what are you gonna do? She smiled confidently. What do you think? Ryan chuckled. I think you'll be fine. I know I will. She glanced back toward the house. Through the window, she could see Nathan quietly washing dishes in the kitchen. The image looked strangely peaceful. He was never really my type anyway, Vanessa said. Ryan's voice softened. Then maybe this is a good thing. Vanessa smiled again. Maybe it is. They talked for another 20 minutes before hanging up. Ryan never said the words she half expected. Never suggested anything about the future. But Vanessa didn't worry about that. In her mind, the next chapter of her life had already begun. Downstairs, Nathan dried the last dish and placed it carefully on the rack. The house was quiet. He turned off the kitchen light and stood for a moment in the darkness. 8 years, reduced to a few signed pages. But strangely, he didn't feel broken. He felt lighter. Upstairs, Vanessa was laughing softly on the phone again. Nathan walked past the staircase without looking up. For the first time in years, her laughter no longer belonged to his life. And somewhere far beyond San Diego, the future he was building was already waiting for him. Winter in New York City had a way of sharpening everything. The air cut through coats and scarves like a quiet warning, and the skyline glittered with a kind of ambition that never seemed to sleep. On the 32nd floor of a glass tower in Manhattan, Nathan Cole stood by a floor-to-ceiling window, watching snow drift slowly between the buildings. 3 years. It still surprised him how quickly a life could change. Behind him, the office of Sentinel Dynamics buzzed with quiet energy. Engineers moved between desks, monitors glowed with endless streams of data, and the low murmur of conversations blended with the distant hum of the city below. Nathan turned away from the window when his assistant knocked lightly on the door. Mr. Cole? He smiled faintly. Just Nathan. She held up a tablet. The reporter from Forbes is here. Nathan nodded. Send her in. A moment later, a woman in her early 30s stepped into the office, notebook in hand, eyes already scanning the room with curiosity. Nathan Cole, she said with a professional smile. I'm Emily Carter. Thank you for making time. Nathan gestured toward the chairs. Of course. They sat across from each other near the window. Emily clicked her recorder on. Your company went from prototype to a 9-figure valuation in less than 3 years, she began. Most founders would call that impossible. Nathan folded his hands calmly. Most founders try to build companies, he said. Emily raised an eyebrow. And you? I tried to solve a problem. Emily scribbled quickly. You're known for working 16-hour days, she continued. Your team describes you as disciplined. Nathan smiled slightly. That's a polite way to say obsessive. And private, she added. There's very little public information about your personal life. Nathan looked out at the falling snow again. That's intentional. Emily studied him for a moment. You weren't always in the startup world, right? No. What changed? Nathan paused. For a second, an image flashed through his mind. A San Diego kitchen, a wine glass, the word week. But he simply answered, perspective. Emily leaned forward. That's all? Nathan turned back toward her, his expression calm but unreadable. That's enough. Across the country, in San Diego, Vanessa Parker stared at the cracked screen of her phone. The name still felt strange sometimes, Vanessa Parker. She had taken Ryan's last name 2 years earlier during a small beach ceremony surrounded by influencers and photographers. The wedding photos had been everywhere online. Golden sunset, white dress blowing in the wind, Ryan lifting her in his arms while cameras flashed. For a while, it looked like a fairy tale, but fairy tales rarely survived reality. Vanessa sat alone in the living room of the apartment Ryan had insisted on renting in Pacific Beach. The place was stylish, but smaller than the house she once shared with Nathan. Ryan had said it was temporary. Now the word carried a different meaning. Her phone buzzed again. Another notification. Not from Ryan, from a news article. The headline caught her attention immediately. Tech founder Nathan Cole redefines predictive AI. Vanessa frowned slightly. She hadn't heard his name in a long time. Curiosity pulled her thumb toward the article. A photograph filled the screen. Nathan stood on a stage at a tech conference, wearing a tailored suit she had never seen before. His posture was different, confident, relaxed. The caption read, Sentinel Dynamics CEO Nathan Cole is widely considered one of the most disciplined minds in artificial intelligence today. Vanessa blinked. She scrolled down. Another photo. Nathan shaking hands with investors. Another headline. The quiet billion-dollar visionary. Her chest tightened slightly. This didn't match the version of Nathan she remembered. The quiet man washing dishes. The cautious husband who avoided risks. The man she once told, "You're weak." Vanessa locked the phone and set it down. For a moment, the apartment felt unusually silent. Then, the front door opened. Ryan walked in, tossing his gym bag onto the floor. "You're home early," Vanessa said. Ryan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked straight to the kitchen and grabbed a bottle of water. His shoulders looked tense. "Long day?" she asked. Ryan shrugged. "Something like that." Vanessa studied him. "You okay?" Ryan leaned against the counter and rubbed his face. "I've been thinking." Her stomach tightened slightly. "About what?" Ryan hesitated. Then he said it bluntly. "I think we should take a break." The words landed like cold water. "A break?" Vanessa repeated. "Yeah." Ryan avoided her eyes. "Things have been complicated." Vanessa stood slowly. "Complicated how?" Ryan sighed. "The fitness brand deal fell through. That happens sometimes. It was my biggest contract." Vanessa's voice sharpened. "So what does that have to do with us?" Ryan looked at her finally. "I need space to figure things out." Vanessa laughed in disbelief. "You're serious?" "Yes, Ryan, we're married." "I know, that's not something you pause like a gym membership." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Look, Vanessa, you knew what my life was like when we met." She stared at him. "And what exactly is it like?" "Unstable," he admitted. "And I'm supposed to just accept that?" Ryan grabbed his gym bag again. "I'm not asking for permission." The silence that followed felt suffocating. Vanessa watched as he walked toward the door. "Ryan," she said quietly. He paused, but he didn't turn around. "Are you leaving me?" she asked. Ryan hesitated for a moment.
Then he opened the door. "I'm leaving, for now." The door closed behind him, and just like that, the apartment felt emptier than the house Nathan had once walked away from. Back in Manhattan, Nathan finished the interview with Emily Carter and walked her to the elevator. "You're surprisingly calm for someone running one of the fastest growing AI companies in the country," she said as the doors opened. Nathan smiled faintly. "I spent a long time learning how to be calm." Emily stepped inside. "Last question," she said quickly before the doors closed. Nathan waited. "Do you ever regret the life you left behind?" For a moment, the hallway fell silent. Nathan considered the question carefully. Then he answered, "No." The elevator doors slid shut. Nathan turned and walked back toward his office. Outside the window, the snow continued falling over New York City. And somewhere far away in California, the past he once lived was quietly unraveling without him. Winter in Manhattan had a particular silence after midnight. Snow softened the roar of traffic, and the streets glowed under rows of amber streetlights like a city suspended in glass. Nathan Cole stood alone in his office, the skyline stretching endlessly beyond the windows. The meeting had ended hours ago. Investors from London had flown in for negotiations. The deal would expand Sentinel Dynamics into European markets, another step in the quiet empire Nathan had built over the past 3 years. Daniel Mercer leaned against the doorframe with a glass of whiskey. "You know," Daniel said, "most founders celebrate after signing something like that." Nathan closed his laptop. "I'm celebrating." Daniel looked around the silent office. "With spreadsheets?" Nathan allowed himself a small smile. Daniel studied him for a moment. "You've changed a lot, mate." Nathan didn't deny it. "People do." Daniel raised his glass. "To becoming terrifyingly successful." Nathan lifted his own glass of water. "To survival." Daniel laughed softly. But before he could reply, Nathan's phone buzzed on the desk. A message. Unknown number. Nathan glanced down. The text contained only 3 words. Vanessa Cole. For a moment, the words seemed to pause. He opened the message. "Vanessa, I'm in New York." Nathan stared at the screen. Another message appeared. "Could we talk?" Daniel noticed the shift in Nathan's expression. "Everything okay?" Nathan locked the phone. "Yes," but his voice was quieter than usual. Vanessa sat in the corner of a small cafe in Soho, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The city outside the window looked impossibly alive. People rushing through snow, taxis honking, the constant pulse of a place that never waited for anyone. She had arrived 2 days earlier. For most of the flight from California, she had debated sending the message, but loneliness had a way of pushing people toward the past. Ryan was gone, not dramatically, not cruelly, just gradually. His career had continued drifting downward, and with it his attention. Eventually, the late night stopped. The calls stopped. The marriage simply dissolved. Vanessa told herself she was fine, but quiet evenings alone had a way of exposing truths she once ignored. Nathan had never left her emotionally stranded. He had simply left, cleanly, completely. And now she was here. The cafe door opened. Cold air swept inside. Vanessa looked up. For a second, she didn't recognize him. Nathan Cole stood near the entrance wearing a dark overcoat, snow melting lightly in his hair. He looked taller somehow, not physically, but in presence. His posture carried a quiet confidence she had never seen before. Their eyes met. Vanessa stood slowly. Nathan. He walked over, calm and composed. Vanessa. They hugged politely. It felt strange, like greeting someone from another lifetime. They sat down across from each other. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Vanessa broke the silence. "You look different." Nathan smiled faintly. "So do you." She laughed softly. "I doubt that." The waiter approached, and Nathan ordered black coffee. Vanessa watched him carefully. Every gesture felt controlled, measured. Gone was the hesitant man she used to interrupt mid-sentence. "You've done well," she said quietly. Nathan shrugged slightly. "Work kept me busy." "That's an understatement," she replied. "I've seen the articles." Nathan didn't respond. Vanessa leaned back in her chair. "The last time we talked was 3 years ago." "Yes, in our kitchen." Nathan nodded. "You were very calm that night, I remember." Vanessa hesitated. "Were you angry with me?" Nathan considered the question carefully. Then he answered honestly. "Not anymore." The words landed with unexpected weight. Vanessa looked down at her hands. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Nathan didn't interrupt.
I wasn't a good wife, she continued. I was impatient, selfish. She looked back up. And cruel. Nathan remained silent. The cafe buzzed softly around them. Distant conversations, clinking cups. Finally, Vanessa asked the question she had been carrying since arriving in New York. Did you ever love me? Nathan met her gaze calmly. Yes. The answer came without hesitation. Vanessa exhaled slowly. Do you still? Nathan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out the window at the snowy street outside. When he spoke again, his voice was gentle. No. The honesty felt almost kind. Vanessa nodded slowly. I thought so. Nathan turned back toward her. You're not here just to apologize. She smiled sadly. You still read people well. He waited. Vanessa hesitated before speaking again. Ryan and I didn't work out. Nathan said nothing. I thought excitement meant happiness, she continued. But it turns out excitement burns out quickly. Nathan stirred his coffee thoughtfully. And stability? He asked. Vanessa looked at him. Stability is something you only appreciate after losing it. Silence returned. Vanessa finally said what she had been afraid to say. I wanted to see if maybe we could try again. Nathan's expression didn't change. The noise of a cafe seemed to fade around them. Vanessa held his gaze. I know that sounds ridiculous, she said softly. But people change. Nathan studied her for a long moment. 3 years ago, he would have felt something. Hope, pain, conflict. Now he felt only clarity. You're right, he said. Vanessa leaned forward slightly. About what? People do change. Her eyes searched his face. Then, Nathan finished his coffee and placed the cup gently on the table. But change doesn't always bring people back together. Vanessa's shoulders lowered slightly. I figured you might say that. Nathan stood slowly. She looked up at him. Thank you for meeting me, she said. Nathan nodded. I wish you well, Vanessa. The words sounded sincere, but they carried something else. Distance. Finality. Vanessa watched him walk toward the door. For the first time since entering the cafe, she realized something painful. Nathan Cole had not come here to reopen a door. He had come to close one. He stepped outside into the falling snow without looking back, and Vanessa remained at the table, staring at the empty chair across from her, finally understanding the truth she had been avoiding. The man she once called weak was now completely beyond her reach. Snow fell softly across Manhattan the next morning. The storm from the night before had settled into a quiet white blanket over the city. Cars moved slower, footsteps softer, the usual roar of New York muffled beneath winter. Nathan Cole stood inside his office, watching the Hudson River disappear into the pale gray horizon. The meeting with Vanessa the night before had left him strangely calm. Not nostalgic, not angry, just finished. Behind him, the office door opened. Daniel Mercer walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. You look like a man who didn't sleep, Daniel said. Nathan accepted the cup. Something like that. Daniel leaned against the desk. Investor problems? Nathan shook his head. No. Daniel studied him for a moment. Then what? Nathan hesitated before answering. My ex-wife came to New York. Daniel blinked. The famous one? Nathan smirked slightly. She's not famous. In your origin story she is. Nathan took a sip of coffee. She wanted to talk. And? Nathan turned back to the window. We talked. Daniel waited. Nathan shrugged. That's all. Daniel laughed quietly. You're the most emotionally mysterious billionaire I know. Nathan didn't reply. But deep down, he knew the conversation wasn't quite finished yet. Vanessa hadn't slept either. The hotel room felt too large for one person. Outside, snow drifted past the window in quiet spirals, the city glowing beneath winter light. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. Nathan's contact information sat open on the screen. She hadn't planned to call him again, but something inside her refused to leave the conversation unfinished. Finally, she typed a message. Vanessa, could we meet one more time before I leave? She almost deleted it. Instead, she pressed send. 10 minutes later, a reply appeared. Nathan, Central Park, 11 a.m. Vanessa exhaled slowly. Central Park in winter looked like a painting. Snow covered the trees, and the frozen lake reflected a pale sky that seemed endless above the city. Nathan stood near a quiet walking path, his hands in the pockets of his coat. When Vanessa approached, she looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just less certain. "Thank you for meeting me again," she said softly. Nathan nodded. They began walking slowly through the park. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Finally, Vanessa broke the silence. "I didn't sleep last night." Nathan glanced at her. "Neither did I." She gave a faint smile. "At least we agree on something." Nathan's breath formed small clouds in the cold air. Vanessa stopped walking. "Nathan," she said quietly. He turned toward her. "I need to say something properly." Nathan waited. Vanessa took a deep breath. "When we were married, I didn't understand you." Nathan said nothing. "I thought stability meant boredom," she continued. "I thought quiet meant weakness." Her voice trembled slightly. "I thought you lacked passion." Nathan watched her carefully. "But the truth," she said slowly, "is that I lacked patience." The wind rustled softly through the bare branches above them. Vanessa looked down at the snow. "I wanted excitement so badly that I didn't see what I already had." Nathan remained silent. Vanessa finally looked up again. "I'm sorry." The words were simple, but they carried 3 years of regret behind them. For a moment, Nathan said nothing. Then he nodded. "I know." Vanessa blinked. "You do?" "Yes." Her voice softened. "Do you forgive me?" Nathan didn't hesitate. "Yes." Tears filled Vanessa's eyes unexpectedly. The answer came so easily that it hurt. "But," Nathan added gently, "forgiveness doesn't change the past." Vanessa wiped her eyes quickly. "I know." They stood quietly in the snow-covered park. Finally, Vanessa asked a question she had been afraid of since arriving in New York. "When did you change?" she said. Nathan thought about it carefully. He remembered the night in the kitchen, the word weak, the moment something inside him cracked open. But he answered differently. "I didn't change overnight." Vanessa waited. "I just stopped living my life to prove something to other people." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Nathan looked across the frozen lake. "For a long time," he said, "I thought love meant endurance." Vanessa listened quietly. "I thought if I worked hard enough, stayed calm enough, forgave enough, everything would eventually be okay." "And now?" Nathan met her eyes. "Now I understand something else." "What?" "That respect matters more than patience." The truth settled heavily between them. Vanessa nodded slowly. "I didn't respect you." Nathan didn't disagree. "You respected someone louder," he said calmly. Ryan's name didn't need to be spoken. Vanessa looked down again. "I thought he was strong." Nathan's voice remained gentle. "Strength is often quiet." Another silence passed. Finally, Vanessa asked one last question. "If things had been different, could we have stayed together?" Nathan thought about it for a long moment. The snow continued falling softly around them. Then he answered, "Maybe." The word carried both possibility and finality. Vanessa understood immediately. "Maybe," she repeated softly. Nathan looked at her one last time. "You'll find happiness again," he said. She laughed quietly. "You sound like a therapist." "I sound like someone who learned a lot the hard way." Vanessa nodded. "I believe that." They walked back toward the park entrance together. When they reached the street, Vanessa stopped. "This is where I go back to the airport," she said. Nathan nodded. She hesitated. Then she stepped forward and hugged him. This time it lasted longer. Not romantic, just human. As she pulled away, her eyes were calm. "Goodbye, Nathan." "Goodbye, Vanessa." She turned and walked toward the waiting taxi. Nathan watched until the car disappeared into traffic. Only then did he turn back toward the park. Snow continued falling quietly across the city. 3 years earlier, Vanessa Cole had looked at her husband and seen a weak man. But she had misunderstood something important. Weak men chase validation. Weak men beg to be chosen. Weak men try to win back what no longer respects them. Nathan Cole had done none of those things. Instead, he had built something else entirely. A life. A purpose. A man who no longer needed to be understood by the person who once doubted him. And somewhere between loss and ambition, the quiet man she once mocked had become someone else. Someone calm. Someone powerful. Someone completely beyond her reach. The man she could never touch again.